make this heart of the civilization to be defined based on what one crazy person or one kapalika in the cremation ground or some crazy tantrics doing some agori practices does, and then stereotype it based on black magic, based on whatever the obscure rituals they are practicing. These are not even mainstreamed in Tantra themselves, and most of what people do today you cannot find anywhere in tantric texts. And then we are calling those weird, bizarre activities as tantra, and then so we are just giving bad name to a big part of our own civilization.
It is no different from spirituality, because I see art and spirituality as one and the same. So the moment art crosses borders, spirituality crosses borders.
Most of the yogic practices, if Patanjali is one of the yogas, there are 92 agamas. Each and every agama has its own unique form of yoga practice. Think how large the yogic practices would be, globally accepted form of spirituality to mainstream throughout the globe, if we were to extract all these teachings and offer to the globe. Look at that.
Om Sarvebhyo Namah. It's a great opportunity for us to have Ācārya, Dr. Asthaneshwar Timalsina, and we have wonderful artist, musician, and orator on Indic studies, Ms. Sivasri Skandaprasad, and we are going to have a conversation. It's not interview like usually we do. It's a conversation. We will discuss some ideas on Indic studies, philosophy, Tantra, Kashmiri Shaivism, and classical music, dance, and so many things. So stay connected. We are going to have good insights about Indian knowledge system and art and so many things. So let me first begin with Ācārya. As we have seen in the bigger picture of global knowledge system, when we call global knowledge system, it's like when we incorporate philosophy, science, history, biology, and so many things. In that parlance, if we put the Indian knowledge system, or let's say spirituality, Indian spirituality or Sanatan Dharma, how do we see that Indian spirituality and Indic knowledge system could contribute to the global knowledge system?
Since the colonial times, the West has, for various reasons, started studying India. And besides commerce or politics or society, they also chose to study Indian classical literature, like Max Muller, for example, William Jones. We can have different sides of criticism of why they studied. Like Max Muller, you can always point about the limitations of colonial studies, but modern studies, the modern Western studies, started during the colonial times, and there were also some good consequences. For example, we have Paul Deussen or Max Muller or Schopenhauer. So these many people were actually deeply influenced by Indian ways of thinking. There are people actually reading the Upanishads. We have the first Upanishad in the Persian translation, and then from that to the German translation. By the later 17th, early 18th century, the West, meaning Europe, was already studying the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads, and many of the philosophical teachings from Buddhism also went from India to the West, were translated, like Sherbatsky, Vallée-Poussin, and they became, in a sense, ambassadors. So even when they had their own agenda and reasons, but that did help us in a bigger picture to introduce, like any introduction is insufficient introduction. They all come with limitations. But what happened is like people in the rest of the world would otherwise not even know. Max Muller edited the Rig Veda. We didn't have that type of textual editing, and so these were oral traditions. And whether it was good to have the book edited, because the books of the Vedas are memorized, handed down from the teacher to the disciple. Like I myself, when I was like 5, my father started teaching me. I was not allowed to touch the book, even though by then we already had the printed book of the Veda. We belonged to the Yajurveda branch. But to memorize the book without reading in a text, that was the main norm. And nowadays we don't memorize as much. And so we can say these are the consequences of modern Western education or something. But it also helped universalize our philosophies. Yes, there is no credit given. There is not due credit or sufficient credit given. But in the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, in the philosophy of Wolfgang Hegel, in the philosophy of Schopenhauer, for example, many prominent Western philosophers, in the writings of Heidegger, for example, you will find the imprints of the teachings coming from India. Carl Gustav Jung came to India to learn psychology, developed a lot of theories by studying, Indian yogis. So, in a sense, the reading Vedic literature, reading Hindu literature has helped the West to revitalize itself, meaning there's substantial amount of thinking in the modern West that is not a product or not a continuum of the Western civilization itself, but rather borrowed from India. So is this a good thing or bad thing? As ideas, they are meant to be universalized. The issue of credit is different. For me, I'm not only going to talk about they didn't give us the due credit, which is the case, by the way. I'm not rejecting that. But even if they didn't give the credit, as a teacher, when we are simply trying to universalize thinking, let's say you are the Buddha and I'm a disciple, I didn't give you the credit. My enlightenment is still a good thing. If you are Buddha, selfless being, Yeah. So therefore, from the perspective of selflessness, having our ways of thinking universalized, to me, is a surplus.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. But here's one objection, Ācārya, we face and when we try to trace Indian knowledge system in the tapestry of the global knowledge system. They say it's a theological orientation or some soteriological orientation. It's a liberation-oriented philosophy that does not fructify in the scientific domain. So in our academia, people fail to defend the proper stand of Indian philosophy in the mainstream, academia. Do you also, find such kind of dichotomy in our practices, even in Indian academia?
There are both aspects, at least the way I think. Number one, yes, it is valid that Indian ways of thinking are deeply spiritual and moksha oriented, but the understanding of moksha itself needs to be re-examined. Moksha means liberation, or moksha means freedom. We don't need to understand this freedom, this liberation, only in the esoteric mystical sense. We could have understood this in our day-to-day liberation, day-to-day freedom in our phenomenal world. But so now let's go back to the problem. The problem is, Indian philosophy is all about spirituality, salvation, liberation, whatever the term you throw. The West is deeply rooted in their own culture and in their own religiosity. So what happened? They created a guise in which they created a language, a secular language, to rebrand the same ideas. In René Descartes, the father of the modern Renaissance. So you can, if you critically analyze Cartesian thinking, you will find deeply Christian notions embedded within William Delty's reading of Descartes, and the way Christian modes of thinking became universalized. in the institutionalization of education, in the dichotomy of matter versus mind or matter versus the spirit. And so that is already a very deeply biblical notion. You can read from St. Augustine to Thomas Aquinas. And we simply took it because he was a great scientist and a philosopher. We only took it, his teachings, as a very secular teaching. What about Wolfgang Hegel, for example? Read Phenomenology of Spirit. So the Hegel is a very great success story of the West. What happens with Hegel in Hamburg? He is first a student of Indology. His master's dissertation is on Bhagavad Gita. And then he deeply studies Sanskrit philosophies and then takes a U-turn, writes Phenomenology of Spirit, derives substantially from the Upanishadic teachings. And his idea of the absolute is already borrowed from the Upanishadic understanding of the Brahman. And then he writes that to basically institutionalize philosophy under the framework of Christianity. And then he writes Philosophy of History, where he uses his whole strength to bash India, to demean India, particularly to demean the Brahmin. And so the project is completed. Number one, learn from them. Number two, take all their good ideas and frame it within the Christian worldview. And number three, discredit them. And then you have your product, final Western product. So most Western thinkers have come within the broader Christian framework. But when we are reading Western philosophy, be it Hegel or be it Kant, we don't even mention the Christian underpinnings. So we only take them as a secular
and universal sort of thinking.
Now, one other thing we are lacking is we also need to build the kind of discourse where we could read Abhinava or Shankara from a fairly secular perspective. We do not need to always talk about mysticism and liberation and Brahman and Shiva and all that. I agree with that, because these ideas, whatever the ideas they have shared there, can be universalized and are helpful to people, whether or not they want to see the mystical domains. But that is where we are lacking. And I do believe in the process of secularization of ideas and universalization and globalization. That is needed because all the human beings deserve to have some greater perspectives regarding life. But at the same time, what is demanded from us is you are like a religious guy, you don't have like a rational thinking, you have just a faith. So that is just something not valid. And who would you teach in philosophy? Like Thomas Aquinas, in philosophy departments in the West, they have no problem to teach Thomas Aquinas. He's a great Christian theologian, right? And then you have the problem to teach Skandaprasad, for example, because he's a religious guy. So therefore, it's like the critique itself needs to be critiqued.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, Ācārya. In fact, we have seen that, like Schrödinger, the great physicist, he said that I have derived my entire tapestry of physics, I could say, is from Upanishad, like non-dualistic tradition and Advaita philosophy. It's like they have borrowed some ideas, but they did not give any credit to Indian thoughts or Indian philosophy.
So that also comes to us, though. What are we doing then? What is our role then in the global academia? We have to play more assertive role, not aggressive. I'm not like, okay, why are you not mentioning us? So we have our own stage. Nobody is stopping us from writing. We are not doing sufficient critique. We are not doing sufficient modernization of our own thoughts. And so it's also our own limitations.
True.
So if your nation is attacked, and you can do two things. One, criticize the enemies who are attacking you to stand up to defend your nation.
Exactly.
So, so this is what I'm talking about. So if these ideas are so dear to you, what are you doing about it? So are we introducing these in our curricula? particularly in colleges, how deeply, how far have we gone to introduce our philosophies in the modern language. I'm not talking about classical Sanskrit categories, because most of our audience is not able to understand in Sanskrit anymore. And so we need to reframe our ideas. I know there are many ideas that we may never be able to completely translate into another language or a culture, but how much do you think it is going to happen that all our modern scholars are going to go back and just read and think in Sanskrit and start writing in Sanskrit, or the whole globe coming to think in Sanskrit? So how much likely is that? So if that's not going to happen, are we going to remain the Puritans, like nobody should talk about us and only we have some secrets that nobody knows about us? Or we want to share our ideas and then bring the world to understand our worldview? I think our project is the second one.
Yeah, I think we have to explore more rather than just saying that we have to, look into the history of thoughts. It just in order to defend, rather we have to examine and critique and modernize it and bring it to the, some sort of universal framework, like objective-oriented study, like. But it's not the compulsion or burden on our shoulder that we have to prove our knowledge system to West, just in order to say, no, we had very great system. Actually, it is a system. We don't have to defend it. We have to just expose it. We have to just, disclose onto the global level rather than,
And we have to bring to life, because these philosophies were practiced at one time. Particularly I come from the Agamic tradition, like a philosophy of Abhinavagupta. What inspires me, I sometimes tell my students that I would love to have a class where I'm teaching and my students are writing commentaries on what I'm teaching, and in a corner like Sivasri ji is singing, because Abhinavagupta in his class, used to have a dancer also. She's performing, and then there are like actually students listening to the philosophy. Just Yogaraj, the disciple of Abhinavagupta, when he writes about the classroom experience. So what is Abhinavagupta trying to say? That these are brought to life, practiced and performed in a real life. Philosophy is lived. So, and we are throwing it to some monks in some remote monasteries or Himalayas, and then we are living a completely different type of life rather than trying to bring that in our practice.
I was thinking of a few things, Bhinavji. When Ācārya ji was explaining, I feel the Indian knowledge system is the global knowledge system. It cannot be separate from that, because if it was, one Srila Prabhupada or Swami Vivekananda, they wouldn't have crossed borders, crossed oceans and gone to another country to talk about the Indian knowledge system as Indian knowledge system.
True, very true. As when you mentioned that bringing knowledge into life, like you, since you are artist and you musician, you bring all those things come to, a different kind of orientation that you approach towards classical art and dance. As Ācārya mentioned, Abhinavagupta, he was a great aesthetician, I think. One of the great aesthetician in the Indian tradition, you'd say. So how do you see that Indian classical tradition could bring more, knowledge orientation, or to some extent you could say performance in our modern day life?
It is no different from spirituality, because I see art and spirituality as one and the same. So the moment art crosses borders, spirituality crosses borders. It's the same thing that is happening at the same time. So when we take a forest ecosystem as an example, we have a particular set of animals in one country, in one country's forest, and the same set but a different genus, different species is in another country. You might find the same kingfisher bird, but it might belong to a different, last set of species might be a different set of species in another country, right? But they're still kingfisher birds. And then there's animals, there's monkeys, there's wild animals, there's different kinds of animals that we see. Birds, they have their own communication amongst themselves, which might equate to the languages that we speak in our own countries. the faiths that we follow as smaller groups in countries. But when there is a calamity, when there is some communication that has to be transmitted across all species, all genuses in a forest, say there is going to be an earthquake, every animal comes together and communicates in the same language, right? They somehow understand. That is the global knowledge system, and that is Indian knowledge system.
And that's a quite philosophical, exposition you have derived. It's very interesting. Ācārya, coming to your first point, and actually it's a question of all those youths, so-called curious minds, because they shy away sometimes when it comes to understand their ancient wisdom and practice Tantra, since you are a veteran and great scholar of Tantra and you're professor at San Diego University. And so what is Tantra exactly, Professor, if I ask you?
Well, this is a very broad and almost like a confusing question because there's not one clear definition of Tantra. Broadly, what I'm calling Tantra is the teachings that you can derive in Agamas. There are 92 of them, Shaivites and Shakta Agamas. But the similar teachings are found also in the Pancharatra Agamas. They are the Vaishnava Tantras. The same way in Buddhist Agamas, like Guhya Samaja Tantra or Chakrasambhara Tantra, Vajravarahi. So these teachings are there. What we find predominantly in these texts, like called Agamas or Tantras, are the processes of some philosophies, almost always non-dual or dualist non-dual type philosophies, and like a Vishishtadvaita type philosophy. So simply it's what do we mean by qualified non-dualism is like rather than saying everything is just one only and reject everything, it's like the example of a forest would be good, because in a forest as a forest it is one, but as a distinctive tree like a mango tree or the oak tree or teak wood tree, all these are different. So in singularity there is the plurality preserved within it. When you say the forest, and you cannot say the mango identity is denied there. No, mango tree as a mango tree is there within the concept of the forest. There can be many other trees. So the same way, anyway. So broadly that type of philosophy, and then the tantras also have the yogic techniques, mostly like the concept of Kundalini is so popular today, but they originally came from Tantric Agamas. The chakra system, they came from Tantric Agamas. They are not in Patanjali's yoga, for example. They came from Tantric Agamas. And so many types of visualization of mandalas, they came from Tantric Agamas, like Sri Yantra, Sri Chakra, a bit popular these days. So that came from Tantric Agamas. And it goes on, so many different yoga. And then there are many routine practices on the deities and mantras and visualization. But more than that, you even have the temple constructions. You even have a statue, how to form, how to construct different statues. What is the proportion between the statue and the temple. You are not going to find these things in so-called Vedic text. These are encoded in the Agamas, in the Agamic text. So, starting from the making of the temple, even the consecration of the statue, daily worship of the statue, all these are routine rituals, are parts of the Tantric Agamas. And so we have now what happened, we have blended all the teachings and broadly Tantra became almost like a taboo to, and then we have universalized tantric practices and we are calling them Vedic.
I was coming to that point because mostly you'd say that it's some sort of magic. Is it magic or clairvoyance when people do not understand or comprehend the entire configuration of Tantra? They make it like some sort of taboo or something. But it's a knowledge system people do practice and people do for the healings and for the medication purposes. And as we have seen that in Kerala, Assam and other northeastern region, people do practice Tantra in order to heal themselves. It's a very healing process. It's not just only for the ritual purpose per se. So coming back to the point, does Tantra come from Indian philosophy, like let's say from Vedanta? non-dualistic philosophy, or is it more ancient, more, I mean, older than the Indian darshana? There are six schools of Indian philosophy. Where does it come from?
No, Tantric Agamas continue the stream of thoughts that you can find, you can trace in the Upanishads, early Upanishads themselves. So even the rituals were not like completely juxtaposing the Vedic rituals. A lot of ritual structures are also the same. But what happened, Tantras made it accessible to all classes. In Tantra, Pravritte Bhairavi Chakre Sarve Varna Dijataya. Everybody, all the castes and creeds have the same authority to practice in Tantra. So it was gender insensitive, so it was not about the males allowed to practice, not the females. So every gender, is allowed to practice Tantra. So therefore, Tantra was universal. And there are many practices in Tantra that actually were borrowed from so-called lower caste families, like the Kubjika practice credits itself for Kulalika Amnaya, meaning coming from the families of the potters. And so if you go to Nepal, for example, in most of the Shakta temples, you will still find the priest coming from the lower caste. So it was kind of rejection of the old orthodoxy and the caste-oriented hierarchy. So that was an effort to universalize. And you can see why they gave such a bad name for Tantra is because it was taking the jobs away from the orthodox pandits, So they had to make it look really bad.
Actually, Ācārya, you have, I mean, pointed out very important point, because mostly people say it is confined to one caste, class, culture, creed, something. Now, Tantra can be practiced by everyone, can be anyone, despite of their...
And then not just the practice. Many of the Tantric Ācāryas didn't come from Brahmin caste. So these Agamas, original Agamas, were constructed, not simply guided. Therefore, you can see there is this Agamic, when you read Brahma Yamala Tantra or Jayadratha Yamala Tantra or even the Chakrasambhara Tantra from the Buddhist side, their Sanskrit is not structured or not like a standard the way Pandits would write, because these people were writing in Sanskrit because that was the common language of learning, but still they were not as correct as these Brahmins who were trained in classical darsana. So they were downloading what they experienced, but not necessarily they were coming from higher caste only.
Sivasri ma'ams, the concept of devotion, as you are very much drawn towards the devotional tradition and bhakti period and abhanga. So how do you incorporate such a very important aspect of devotion in your art?
Honestly, I don't do anything. That is the whole point of devotion. So when you get on stage and you sit there, and then until I get onto the stage and take the blessings of the stage, until then I'm there, I exist. But after that, I don't know how the 2.5 hours go. There is some energy that flows, and then the concert happens, and before I know, it's over.
It's like you get immersed in the concert.
So I very sincerely believe, even before I start my concert, I pray to the God. Generally, it's like a visual imagination that you do. It's a conscious imagination that you bring to your mind, where you visualize all the deities that you generally pray to. I do that, and it helps. I tell them, I think it's over to you now.
It's complete surrender. Yeah. Who's your Ishtadev? All that.
Yeah, it's generally all of them. I mean, generally people assume that because I wear a Rudrakshi, it's assumed that my Ishta Devata is Shiva. But I generally sing Abhanga on Vitthal and Krishna. I keep doing Vanamali, Vasudeva, and so it really doesn't matter to me, because beyond the iconography, they're all the same. So to me, it is just a symbolism to bring people to that focus.
Let's say one could say it's complete manifestation of entire diverse culture of India. When she prays to every deity and God while... But it's very interesting, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to ask you very slightly different question, like what role of devotion or some sort of, you could say, surrender to deity or Ishta could bring some transformation to the life, to your life or to anybody. How do you see that thing?
Yes, so thank you for asking the question. So I insist on this answer wherever I go. So devotion is not when you pray to God. That is not devotion. It's not when you go to the temple or at home or wherever you close your eyes and I mean that is when you're being selfish. That cannot be devotion, right? You're praying for something. You're praying for your well-being or whatever it is that we are praying for. But I feel the ultimate form of devotion that is capable of bringing a transformation in the society is paropakarartham idam shariram. So that is the only form of devotion where you surrender your life, your actions, your thoughts, your words, everything for others' well-being. That is the ultimate form of devotion. It also comes in the bhakti tradition of Maratha saint poets, where the entire ghata starts with Pundalika, who dedicates his life in service of his parents and makes Panduranga wait outside. He makes Vitthal wait outside on a brick in pouring rain. He says, I am doing my duty.
Vitthal Bhagwan is standing on the brick.
So that is the Murti there in the temple. He's waiting for his devotees to do their duties and then
Duties first
and then I'm the last is what he depicts.
It's quite unique. I mean, most of people I have seen I live in Vrindavan, I have seen that people have left their household, I mean, duties as some other things like, and they come to Vrindavan, become the part of the Vrindavan ethos, I say, the cultural tapestry of Vaishnavite literature or Vaishnavite tradition. And most of time I ask them, why do you do that? I mean, why do you, what kind of, I mean, aesthetics or rasha you find in bhakti? And they say simply that it's up to you. When you surrender yourself to the deity, that you'll feel that. It's a subjective experience. Is it so?
It is both aesthetics and
Spiritual
pure love, yes. So one is because the tradition, the Vaishnavite tradition in Vrindavan propagates love, pure love towards the divine, towards Krishna, and everyone considers themselves as Radha and as a gopi, and yes, embodiment of the Jivatma as they are
Partial, Ansha avatar, something. Exactly.
so it's sort of ingrained in them that they become one with Krishna when they become the gopi or Radha. So that is an idea that I see is happening in most of the Vrindavan type ecosystem also.
Even in Banaras, Ācārya, I have seen that. I mean, he has practiced and come from that Gurukul, Guru Shishya Parampara. He has seen the kind of devotion to Shiva and Rudra. Exactly. So, Ācārya, I have some questions like people have asked to you earlier and other, I mean, podcast and somewhere. Like, how do you see the tradition of Tantra could be the mainstream academia? It's like, could be the part of mainstream academia. And why people are not, I mean, bringing it into mainstream education, like some independent scholar, like Indologists, they come from other countries, other nations, and they find it's very interesting, it's very scintillating philosophy.
I personally believed so. It has to be. When I was 19, I had two choices. One, to go to Germany and go for my master's, or to go to Banaras and study Agamas. I chose the latter. I had a scholarship in both places. I chose not to go to Germany.
So you left to Germany and
Yes, that is what I thought was more important to me at the time. Even though later I actually went for my PhD, but I didn't go to Germany for my master's, and I wanted just to teach in Gurukula. I didn't have any dreams to go to the West. That was not part of me, but many things happened. Let's not talk about it. But anyway, why did I go to Banaras? It's because my Guruji said all the good intellectual people these days, go to standard schools, and who are coming to traditional gurukulas are the people who are not able to go to any of the formal schools, whose parents don't want to send them or are not able to send them to regular schools. And then what do these kids who are going to these type of ashram based gurukulas, what do they want? They just want to learn little Sanskrit, to perform some puja rituals, whatever, learn little astrology, and then that's it. They do not want to be the carrier of civilization the way that was done till the last generation.
Exactly.
So Guruji said, now the times have changed. You have to get a degree, you have to introduce a department, and you have to fight to get this knowledge mainstreamed. So that became my mission. I went to Banaras, I went back to Nepal, I struggled and finally succeeded in introducing the Department of Tantric Studies around 91, and it is still running there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, last winter I went to Nepal, and then I picked up the same battle, and then we had a lot of conversations in different levels, and I heard that the Nepal government has accepted the education ministry to incorporate Agamic studies within all the Sanskrit schools, 250 of them in Nepal, as a Aikshik, means optional subject. So in the West, when I went to the West, we didn't have proper academic representation, and the first thing I did, by support and help with my friends, we started within American academia, American Academy of Religion. I, alongside another friend, we co-chaired and started a Tantra group, and we started inviting papers on Tantra, and I chaired that for about 6 years, and now it is flourishing. In the beginning, we used to have like 2 or 3 papers, people, scholars wanting to write or talk about Tantra. Now we get like 50 papers, We are getting more and more volumes published, so bigger awareness coming. And now, then this is the third phase, or the stage of my life where I'm frequently coming back to India, and I hope that with the help of all of you, that our society is ready or willing to wake up enough that to discredit Tantra is to discredit 50% of your own civilization.
yeah.
And to misunderstand, you cannot find one illiterate guy cheating society, tricking community, doing some black magic, and then make this heart of the civilization to be defined based on what one crazy person or one kapalika in the cremation ground or some crazy tantrics doing some agori practices does, and then stereotype it based on black magic, based on whatever the obscure rituals they are practicing. These are not even mainstreamed in Tantra themselves, and most of what people do today you cannot find anywhere in tantric texts. So people are randomly picking and doing weird things, and then we are calling those weird, bizarre activities as tantra, and then so we are just giving bad name to a big part of our own civilization. Because why should we study Tantra? Most of the yogic practices, if Patanjali is one of the yogas, there are 92 Agamas. Each and every Agama has its own unique form of yoga practice. Think how large the yogic practices would be, globally accepted form of spirituality to mainstream throughout the globe, if we were to extract all these teachings and offer to the globe. Look at that. And even the Tantric philosophy is why I worked for so long on Advaita Vedanta. Why am I advocating for Tantric philosophy now? Because it's okay to study all philosophies, and it's fine to have this faith in the absolute Brahman and singularity and all of that. But we cannot live a life in dichotomy. And on the one hand, we are saying that life is mithya, life doesn't matter, it's illusion, real world is just drama, is illusion, it's not real, only Brahman is real. On the other hand, what are we trying to do from morning to evening? We want to make more and more money. We want to be more and more powerful. We are filled with lust and desire and every single thing. So what is happening in the real life is we are deceiving ourselves. There is another way. The another way is the tantras, because what they are saying, sex is good. You don't need to pretend and then just go and do whatever in the corner. You can just be honest about it. If you want to drink, you can drink. You are not going to go to hell just for drinking. Be honest to yourself, but you can still worship the goddess, have the devotion. So it is like mainstream society can actually practice Tantra. When we want all the orthodoxies, 90% of the people cannot adopt the Brahminic orthodoxy to practice Vedic sadhanas, Vedic rituals and sadhanas. So Tantra makes it applicable in our modern day life. And then gives us bhogascha mokshascha karasta eva Sri Sundari sadhana tatparadam. So you should also have bhoga and moksha. It is not the teaching, tantric teaching is not for bhoga only. It's not for moksha only either. And the same philosopher, Abhinavagupta, for example, who is writing so extensively on all these esoteric practices and philosophies, is also the teacher writing extensive commentary on the Natya Shastra. Why? Why bother Natya Shastra if it is just liberation only? Can you imagine Shankaracharya writing a commentary on Natya Shastra? So there is a philosophical shift in Abhinavagupta that Dance refers to so many things. You go to any Hindu temple, where would you not find one Apsaras or someone dancing in the pillars? Dance is our deities are dancing. Every single pose, when the deities are in standing pose, she would know, she would say, she would vouch for it, I hope, that they're in dancing pose, one or another.
Yes.
So derived from the extensive mudras and karanas from the Bharatanatyam, our gods and goddesses are in dance. And what are we talking about? We are separated from our spirituality when we separate ourselves from the real world. So this is why we need to mainstream Tantra, because we can be honest and sincere and be spiritual and happily go to our occupation, love our loved ones without, saying, I know you are just Maya, but, I'm tied to what the hell I'm in,
It's very important. Like mostly people think that once you practice Tantra, you have to separate yourself from the real world, from your duty or household practices. You don't have to, as Ācārya has very rightly pointed out. I think you can live, you can do your job, whatever you are doing. At the same time, you can practice Tantra. And when it comes to understand Tantra and its practices, we have to follow any certain pattern or configuration. Ācārya, you
in Tantra, there are many schools even within Tantra, and I come from a particular lineage called Sarvamnaya. In us, we integrate all the Amnayas. Some practitioners these days do one deity, pick up one Diksha, and then go and live their life, worshipping that deity, and they don't bother knowing other systems, other deities, other philosophies within Agamas. For us, these are all integral to Shiva's revelation, and we need to relate to them. But what is most important here is there is the Guru, there is the Shastra, and there is your practice. Trisrota samidam jnanam shastrato gurutaha swataha. There are three streams for this realization, this jnana. One is you have to learn from the Shastras, another is from the Guru, and then you sit and practice and you will have some experiences. You learn from your own experience. So what is happening today, most people don't bother the Shastras. So they pick up one mantra from their Guru. These days even Google, is the Guru. So they are just picking whatever mantra they like and then practicing. And then I get people like, oh, I have been reading this mantra for a whole year, nothing happened, I don't believe in Tantra. And, oh, who gave you the mantra? No, I just saw it in Google. So this is actually happening. People are doing it.
I think it's a dangerous note.
It is absolutely dangerous because these are meditative practices. They directly affect your psychology. And if you do not know what elements you are ingesting in your mind, what you are including, incorporating within your system. It's like eating food without knowing whether they are toxic or whether you can digest them, whether they are conducive to your health. So or to what is the portion for you to eat.
Eat it. It should be done under the guidance of Guru.
You need a mentor. You don't go swimming on your own, reading some Google, videos or something. You need someone with a life belt, and or if you even learning biking, it's better to have someone to hold you.
Mentor.
So for the audience, if you are reading chemistry or studying chemistry, the same way like you do, and you have to practice Tantra under the guidance of Guru. It's not like you just Google it and found something very interesting and you started practicing and later you just ruined your life. It's not like you have to find a Guru or you have to be qualified enough to have a Guru or something.
Yeah, and then we need to meticulously learn the system. What is happening? One of the declines of the civilization, consequences of the decline of civilization is we have these street tantrics, bazaar tantrics, who have not studied Agamas, and they have perfected in one vidya or the other, and they will give you portions and do whatever you want, astrology, horoscope reading, and then say you do this deity and this and this. This is not what Tantra Agama is all about. These are maybe minor applications, misused broadly, but it comes from a system, and people are not reading the system. People are not interested in understanding the entire system. And this is also another reason why we need to have a proper education. People are anyway going to do these things. Society is harming more than learning and protecting themselves. So the society is being harmed by stopping this education. We have removed formal education of these things. What is happening in society? The people who are not educated of the system are taking advantage of the faith that people have and then feeding them to do all kinds of bizarre things. And then as a consequence, people are being harmed.
Harmful, dangerous. Yeah. And so now the reason that people say that it's a old edition, it's a decline of civilization, as you mentioned. Yeah. Exactly, coming to the point, we see and like in Ma Kali Puja, Navratri and other Hindu tradition as Sanatan rituals, we see that there is a very significant place of rituals or symbols, let's say, in our daily life, in our practices. How do you see that these things could be done always under the guidance of Guru? I mean, is there should be some sort of normative or some codes that we should follow, or is it just a random selection or something?
Absolutely not random. There is a process called Krama Diksha. You first have to have initiation.
It's Kramic section.
Yeah, Krama Diksha. So Krama means sequence, order. So you do not get every instruction in a get-go. You just don't go to a teacher, pick up a mantra, and then your job is done. It's not like that. So you have one stage of learning.
Is it called initiation?
Yeah, Diksha.
Diksha.
So you have one stage Diksha, and then you practice that. You excel into that practice. It may take a year. It may take more time. Some people might finish in 6 months, depending how much time and energy they can afford. And then you go to the second stage, some Shakta Visheka. And then you go to the third. Krama Diksha is you have stages of learning. A teacher is very closely mentoring and monitoring your process of or your intensity of your sadhana. And then you complete one course of practice which demands substantial amount of study and substantial amount of sadhana, means mantra repetition. We call Purascharana. If the mantra is 6 letters, you will have to do 600,000 times of repetition plus additional for the libation and other consequences. So you have to complete these courses, and only then you are given gradually from very basic seed syllable mantra to very complex mantras, and then we go to Kuta mantra, and then we go to Langa, Shatakshar, like 100 phoneme mantra, and then you are trained to be able to see from the beginning to the end in your head without muttering, So it's an intense dhyana. Your meditation has to be so accurate that you are able to see the whole phonetic structure of the mantra without repeating it. And then it can go, like when you are actually evolved sadhaka, there is a Shastrakshara, 1000 letter mantra, and then you should not articulate it. First of all, of course, you have to repeat, but you should be able to just think of all the phonemes, all the words in a sequence to complete the whole 1000 phoneme mantra. So this builds acute level of attention. So when actually sadhana is happening, the sadhaka, the practitioner, is building his capacity to attend to something for a longer, sustained period of time. And what is the consequence? You can actually see in real life that his span of attention expands from, like now, the average, human attention was some 14 seconds. Now the decline to some 9 seconds, 7 seconds. Then within even 1 year, we can develop the span of attention going to 20 seconds or minute, So it's exponential growth. Just imagine your ability to experience something. If you can, multiply your capacity to stay in that same attentive mode for 4 times longer or 10 times longer. We can show, subjects can actually personally experience. So it's not just about, is the ghost going to appear, We are actually today civilizationally so illiterate that when we talk about Tantra, people start thinking like, is it going to give me money or, something like a magic-oriented things.
Shortcut method.
For the practitioners, for the sadhakas, how can we be satisfied that, yes, I'm learning something, I'm gaining something, is by how long can I focus? One. Like most people are able to just focus on one object. How many multiple objects can I focus simultaneously and have, like how many
Meticulous reading of that.
No, the way it works is like, suppose I'm repeating a mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. In the background, you have the image of Shiva, right? You have 2 objects then. One is the image, another is the sound. And always tantric practices involve some images and some sounds. Why? Is because sound processing is logic processing, and then image processing is the fantasy, like image processing. You have these two different hemispheres in the brain. We are engaging both the hemispheres by simply processing 2 things, image and sound. Okay? We are already expanding, like multiplying twice by consciously giving you mandala and mantra. So you have to
the objects.
Yeah, you have to simultaneously give presence to both. And then what do? We stage the deity in front of the mandala. You have now 2 images. One is the mandala, another the deity. And then we have the mantra. Now we give the meaning for the mantra, like this mantra correlates to that. We have 4 objects now. The meaning, the mantra, the deity, and the mandala. So simultaneously, how many objects? It's not one after another. It's simultaneously how many objects can you pay attention to. This will revolutionize human consciousness. That is why I have such strong faith on it. Because we have a system that can reshape human attentiveness.
Yeah, coming to slightly different, configuration of this conversation, if I ask you, Sivasri ma'am, do you see that now modern India is awakening to certain level when people can, see the changes in the society? So is it some sort of paradigmatic shift you are changing in our culture these days? What do you see that, what do you see?
There's definitely a shift, but there are many aspects to the shift. So one is, there's one group of people who modernize devotion and try to make it relevant to today's young generation, so that they also come into the path of devotion. But in the process, there is a lot of dilution that is happening. There's a lot of digression that is happening. Like Ācārya ji was mentioning, how even Tantra has got a very different connotation to it today. Was the process to make it relevant, because most of the younger generation want instant gratification. They want some result to see it right in front of them. So they start using Tantra to probably get money,
Just
to
like
get
Google.
status. Yeah, just like how they Google, right? They want immediate answers. And I don't think, their attention span is also quite good for them to learn focus through, through Tantra. So as the capacity of the generation is reducing, the process of bhakti, the process of devotion also is changing, and it's becoming more into a capsule. So I wouldn't blame it, because is why in Kali Yuga they've told just recite the Nama, that's more than enough. Yeah, we are not expecting anything more from you guys, is what the gods literally told. So, so out of the Navavidha Bhakti, now we've lost the rest of them, only Kirtanam remains.
Kirtanam.
Shravanam also has gone. So, even when we sing, there are, in a concert when I'm singing, initially, until I am able to grasp all their attention, bring all of them together, we have people doing this. We have people talking to each other. We have people looking outside for no reason, because there'll be some other thought going inside their head. Yeah, they're just lost, perpetually preoccupied with something useless. So, as long as we have the simplest form of devotion to follow, people are happy. Everything has been, there is nano sandhya vandanam today. It's called nano sandhya vandanam to reduce the time. Yeah, to reduce the time that it takes. Sandhya vandanam, the entire process takes about 15 to 20 minutes. That itself is less, maybe half an hour. And now that has come down to 5 minutes, 4 minutes. They stand near the sink and do sandhya vandanam.
Now they do like that. Just
So when things are shrinking, I think bhakti has also shrunk to a great extent because of the process. Because as you sow, so you reap. That one thing never changes. So that is one constant in the universe. Whatever you give, you get back. If I give 5 minutes, I get 5 minutes value of bhakti back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that is modern spirituality.
some aspect of bhakti and let's say religion, practice, philosophy, and other things. Everyone is seeking some sort of escape these days. What I'm seeing in the society, if we, psychologically observe the phenomenon, that what is happening these days. People are seeking some sort of escape, some easy path to get something. Either, as you mentioned, like money by doing some sort of tantra. Little bit tantra in very bizarre fashion. And likewise, like bhakti, they pretend that they are, devotional or bhakti. At the same time, they have kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mad, matsara, all sort of vikaras as follies. Bhakti says that we have to subdue such kind of vikara, then we can have that we can attain the liberation or divine blessing, something. So I'm seeing a little bit of escape in a way that cannot be filled by any sort of pleasure or any sort of, some reckless method. So we have to offer something that a new young mind, curious mind can, adopt in and can apply to their life.
Exactly what Nama Sankirtanam is, honestly, because as he was mentioning about Purascharana,
Right.
if the mantra has a particular length, the entire process is according to the length of the number of syllables, the aksharas that you have in the mantra. So if it is a 35 akshara, imagine the 1000 akshara. Imagine the kind of Purascharana that it demands from the devotee, from the person, from the practitioner rather. So that is hard work.
So very challenging.
It is hard work to comprehend Carnatic music. It is hard work to understand what the composer is trying to say there. It is hard work to understand the Upanishads. It is hard work to understand the Vedas, for example. The Veda is not for one group of people, it is for the entire human civilization. Yes. But the reason why Vedas are rejected is not because of the fact that people believe that it is for one group, but because people are just lazy. They don't want to comprehend it. It is too much work. So, like you said, it's an escape route to not do something that you're required to do. So, if I sing Carnatic music, if I sing Raga Alapana of a particular Raga for 45 minutes, nobody wants to understand what is happening on stage. Instead, if I'm going to make them sing along a Namavali, say I just even recently had told this, if I just take Ramanama, if I just say Jai Shri Ram, how difficult is it for people to follow?
Exactly.
And the escape route is not just, probably one very small minuscule group might choose music or devotion as an escape route. Mostly the escape route is to get high. So the idea of me doing this Namavali came from, giving them that high through this. They're looking for a high through substances. And why do they do that? Because they want to escape from the hard work that they're expecting.
Do they follow Namavali?
Yeah, I ensure they do. I force it on them when it's my concert. If it is a hall of 200, all 200 should sing. If it's a hall of 500, all 500 should sing.
That's a different kind of unique engaging method of doing. Is it some sort of singing to mobile audience?
Yeah, it is.
A quick mandir parikrama.
Yes, that is even better because they are in movement. There is less probability of them losing focus because they have to move along with the group and they have to stay with us. So they have to do what we are doing as a herd and bringing a herd mentality and making it positive to make each of them go out of the herd mentality.
And
Through the same
becoming themselves.
Yes. So that is what, in fact, Nagara Sankirtana is not a new concept. Going around the four roads of around the temple or inside the prakara of the temple. It is not a new concept. It has been there for thousands of years. For example, the Sangeeta Pitamaha Purandara Dasaru, he did the same thing. He was the father of music.
Comes from Carnatic tradition?
Yes. So he is the father of Carnatic music. But he did bhajane, he did Nama Sankirtane around the temples, on roads, Nagara Sankirtane. That is exactly what he was doing. He is depicted as a saint who is walking with a tambura and a chipla.
Chipla, that is called chipla.
Yeah, that's called chipla.
Like
yes. So he took people along with him, walked around and sang. So that was literally the first form of music that we had. But we've just lost it somewhere in time.
So is it just because of, attention span, or people are looking for some escape, or some Western, imposition, Western cultural imposition on our tradition and values? Because we see that we are living in a global era, so like global village we call it in our academic language. So is it because some sort of amalgamation or completely entrenched society that we live in and we don't find any route that we should follow, or that we can adhere to certain norm that this is my culture, my tradition, where I have to follow, and of course I can listen others, but at the same time I have to follow my own tradition?
I feel it's the fear of missing out.
fear of missing out.
Yeah,
And
they
also
want to be
mentioned-
associated with some group somewhere so that they're not left out.
Yeah, is it just a herd mentality, morality? I think you mentioned.
Yes, it is. It comes back to the same thing because that is the most colonial mindset that we are still stuck with. That is the fear of missing out. As traditional, as original Indians from the Bharata Varsha long ago, we had everything and we knew we had everything. We still have everything, but right now the difference is we do not know that we have everything.
One of the finest architectures and temple architectures, and even shipbuilding like Kalpataru Siksha and various Surya Siddhanta, astronomy, all this sort of knowledge system we could fathom we had. But unfortunately, I think it has been completely the Western mindset, actually perspective, that we look our things from the Western eyes, and we say, no, this is completely old edition. We have to follow something now. It's a burden, I think, on the shoulder of all those thinkers, acharyas and sadhaks, that we have to keep our practices in a very meticulous manner. So youngster, particularly those curious youngster, they are little curious, but they are pathless in a way. They can't find any specific, discipline, or they can order their life in very rudimentary way that could fructify some, some result that could be considered as the rightful, appropriate action. So, Acharya, how do you see that? Could we give, or could we, offer something that could fill their such kind of gap or escape? As she mentioned that we have to uh, change their mentality in order to get them attuned with their civilizational values.
Give it a little time. The first thing is what my Guruji used to say is you have to conserve the sparks for when the time comes. A single spark can turn into a flame, and it can sweep across the entire hills. So what I mean by give it a little time is we are demanding so much from modern Western mode of life. If you go and live in the West, most people are dissatisfied with what they are given. It's mostly our fantasy about the West. I've lived there for 30 years, and I know how hollow people feel there from within. There are no families there left. First of all, we have the family structure broken. We are alone. And two, there is no spiritual guiding. And what is happening as a consequence, we have paid attention to instant gratification. Whatever gives us momentary satisfaction. So we would go giving thrill, like dance, drink, drugs. And then when you hit real life, you are living in that job routine. You are productive, but you are also isolated. And you know what? In here still, we have friends to talk to each other. I have this very funny experience that one day I was feeling a little gloomy. Things didn't turn out the way, it was a job situation. I wanted to talk to my friend. He was like a very good friend, close friend for a long time. So I was saying, like, look, I'm so sad. And I started, like, after 5 minutes, it's just like, do you have a counselor? And nothing wrong. He meant well to me. But then I immediately realized that just like we share our feelings with friends here, our families, and we go and cry and all of that. There are people with the job to listen to if you want to say something.
Yeah, therapy.
So it's it's like if you want to say something about yourself, you need to pay someone $100 an hour. So there is a guy who would listen to you. Are you trying to exploit me for free, man? People are making $100 for listening, and you want me to freely listen to you. So can you feel it? So Times magazine about 4 or 5 years ago, I remember in the front cover had one story that 1 out of 3 person in America aged 50 or above is having one or another form of mental problem. It could be severe forms like schizophrenia or ADHD or anything, but it could be simply depression or many stages of anxieties. And you know what the forecast was in the coming 10 to 15 years, and 5 years have already passed, by the way, from that forecast. They were expecting the age group to go down further, and the ratio also to go from 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 2. So every 1 out of 2 persons age 50 or above is predicted to have some sort of mental problem. So just because we have food, we have fancy cars, we have our own apartment that we don't need to share with our parents or children, does not solve the fundamental problem of the humans, that human beings are psychological beings, not just a pure physical beings,
Physical or rational.
like the animals in the forest. The deers running in the forest, they are not worried as much about someone hurting their ego. But for us, that's a big issue. Someone hurts our ego. We keep that feeling maybe for the rest of our life. Even Sivasri said such things. How can I live my life? People take very, you never know when people are going to take it too seriously. I have myself this bad habit. I roast people a lot, I invite other people to roast me. So,
That's a good way of having conversation and
Yeah.
counseling as well at the same time.
but I have to be very sensitive, like in going in public in the West, like there is this such heightened level of cultural sensitivity, religious sensitivity, like across religions. We used to, like in our school life, college life, we used to joke around with the different religion groups, and it didn't matter then. Now we have to be sensitive. I might hurt his or her feelings, and then this type of unbroken relation, like we are already projecting that other person as very different. I don't want to hurt your why will you hurt my feeling? Because we are the same persons, right? So this is that you may have noticed that heightened cultural sensitivity, maybe even in India, but I've noticed that heightened cultural sensitivity in America. People, who come
Get
to,
hurt very easily.
if my neighbors have some thing they want to comment about the way I do, something they don't like me doing, and then they start from how much they love brown people or things like that. That already offends me, because
Okay, now they're getting somewhere.
yeah, exactly. So it's like that. I respect your culture and all of that, because so why do you need to tell that? Because just tell me what you want me to do, because there is such cultural sensitivity that has split us apart, that we have to address those things before simply one single point, like they don't want me to put the trash can in the wrong day, and their guest didn't like it, or something minor.
Yeah.
They have to start from how much they love India.
Yeah.
Even you could
So
see the difference.
we have created this type. So what I mean is, give it a little time, is people are expecting whatever they are expecting. They have misplaced their value, their expectations. People need to realize that this is empty, hollow thing. They have to go back to deeper realization of humanity. We are spiritual beings. We are not just simply physical beings.
Human beings.
We have the mind that rules over the matter. Our psychology rules over our physicality. Our dreams, our expectations, anticipations are primary to our hunger. For example, sometimes I'm writing and it is 2 in the afternoon. I didn't even have breakfast, and I'm so happy. My wife is screaming, "Don't you want to eat your breakfast today?" So, but like, why am I doing like that? Because I'm in my mental world that I'm finding so engaging, that I am able to, even forget my physical reality, that I'm a physical being. Therefore, we need the sciences of the mind as crucial, as central to our moving forward. And that is where I believe yoga, Tantra, Vedanta, these things will supplement for humanity to go forward.
Like French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre says that hell is others, and we in Indians say that Atithi Devo Bhava. So this is a huge difference in our civilizational approach to our values and our lifestyle.
I mean, we say Atiti Devo Bhava, but I think we believe in something else. The thing is, again, what we say and what we follow are two entirely different things, because I'm sure majority of Indians would agree with the French philosopher more than Atiti Devo Bhava. So, I mean, we can probably say it out, but not really follow it.
The modern job life has created these demands. Both husband and wife very busy working, maybe in two different corporations, and they don't have time for their children. Sometimes I've been to a situation like, just like telling you informally, like I'm invited for a party, and then there's a little 2-year-old boy just rushes towards me saying, "Papa, Papa." The boy doesn't even recognize his father, because the boy has not seen his father as much, because he's so busy at work, and we look more or less alike, So modern reality is the reality where your family doesn't recognize you. We are so busy working, making money. We have assets. We don't feel like this is enough. I always say, whenever I come back to India or Nepal and I find my own colleagues from my college life 10 times richer than I am. I'm not even kidding.
You meet them often?
Yeah, so occasionally, because it's like, when I start telling them in the West, I just have a job, I spend everything by the end of the month, I have nothing left. I'm not complaining. I'm just okay with that life, But in here, there is so much obsession in collecting
Money.
and creating assets,
Saving.
and, being richer. And so that is actually, that was not the pursuit of our life. That was not our life philosophy. I don't know where we got this life philosophy, but this is a sense of insecurity, and also imposing too much value on physical things, physical assets. And I know that there will be a big crisis in the job market, meaning more and more AI is going to take over modern jobs, and we will need to redefine the whole socio-economic structures. So that's why wait for a little bit. But that doesn't mean don't do anything. Let's keep producing alternative philosophies. Let's start giving people the ways that they can live their life better, so that when people are at the verge of collapse, they can see, maybe I should choose my lifestyle and then come to this. Why is there so much attraction in what I'm teaching in the West? Why do so many students come and learn? I am not able to teach all the students. There's such demand that I need 1,000 people like me to already address the volume of students wanting to come and learn. Why is there so much? Because people have seen that what they have is not enough. They need something.
And they are also seeing a different reality, different worldview at the same time. Thank you so much, sir, Ācārya. It's a very interesting conversation and insightful discussion. Sivasri ma'am, she's a founder of Ahuti Foundation. I'm working with artistic excellence and pathway to enlightenment. You should join, you should follow her everywhere, wherever you could find. And Ācārya, Asthaneshwar, Timalsina, sir has founded a very different enterprise that is called Banaras Foundation. Everyone should check it and go for the publication, reading papers and doing research on consciousness studies and various aspects of Tantra philosophy, Kashmiri Saivism. It's a proper, full-fledged, sophisticated, developed yogic research. It's an empirical science rather than some reckless orientation as what most people see in the streets, like bizarre or weird activity. It's not like that. It's completely scientific orientation, empirical, and completely it's like evidence-based research. It's not out of blue or something. So you should follow it very meticulously, rigorously. And thank you so much, Ācārya.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.